we're starting to push into these like crazy zones where people were starting to go beyond the physical. So that's when you push people very, very hard in a physical realm, they start to expand. And I saw it over and over again. I could see when a guy was like in the zone. So we talked about the alpha brainwave states a lot. So we tell them, push into the zone, alpha brainwave state, wide angle vision, breathe, And these guys started to do amazing things. I mean, all these guys were attacking them. They could handle it. It was like, wow, he's in the zone. So we want to find these zones in our martial training. We want to push people into these zones.
Welcome to Martial Mindset, where we delve into some of the leading minds in business, martial arts, and academia to find out what truly makes success in any field of life. We are the fight coaches who will motivate and inspire you to level up your game, no matter how big or scary your goals may be.
What you're saying, Michael, really essentially is these triggers are helping people, it's a transferable skill, as you just said, Michael. I mean, you look at it in a business environment, you can look at it in a martial arts or a combative situation, but essentially it's decision making. So the fact that you're managing your emotions, if you like, and containing these triggers, it helps you make more effective decisions given the situation. So, a classic example is you might have a young man who gets really angry, and then, he's triggered, and then all of a sudden he starts to, hit, strike, punch the person, and then just go literally crazy on the other person. That's a bad decision, but it could be an emotional decision. So, I think the key thing that's a transferable skill from the martial art world, and that's really what we're talking about to every other environment, being business being one of them as well, is that if you can control your emotions, then you've got this ability to make effective decisions, and definitely from a work environment, that's something I think's commendable, really. I mean, one thing to add to it, how do you view, because I know a lot of the more combative systems, and we were talking earlier about the spear system and so on, and I'm sure you do this, how do you guys, because they're very often based on surprise, the training of, because when you go to a martial arts school, a typical martial arts school, when they're learning self-defense, they're learning it in a situation where it doesn't go wrong, it's quite well scripted, and for example, they're told what's going to happen. The person's going to attack you with said punch or right punch, and you're going to maybe block, intercept it, and do this. But I know that a lot of my experiences of working with a lot of combative instructors is that they do a lot of ambush type work where it's surprise, it's chaotic, they don't know where the attacks are coming from. We were doing an exercise earlier this year where I was getting guys to do burpees, so they were completely exhausted, and then I was giving them very strange scenarios which they couldn't control because obviously they were A, exhausted, so they couldn't think, and B, all of a sudden they had these variables that were not in their script, basically, and they just had to respond and deal with it. I mean, how do you think that type of training is effective in a civilian environment?
Yeah, that's one of the things I think is very important to continually stress. And we would have situations where we'd have the guys training every day for 10 hours a day, 30 days straight. So eventually they get to the point where they're fighting for 3 minutes straight, everyone in the class. So you have 27 guys attacking you at the same time, and these are, big, heavy, hardcore SEALs.
Yeah.
And we eventually get to the point where, it's very slow, very methodical. The guys aren't throwing the punches hard, but, as it progresses, over the weeks, they have to wear body armor, because the guys are really punching them hard. So they're attacking. I mean, we're doing takeouts, throat, they're breaking necks and all kind of crazy stuff, right to that point where, he would have broke my neck if he hadn't just pulled it right at the last point. So we're pushing into these zones where it's life or death, so you want to simulate that the best you can. And we do that in Bud's training as well, in the very beginning, like in Hell Week. So these guys are push to the ultimate limit. So any kind of training that does that, I think, is very, very effective. And when I was doing that, it pushed me into different zones where I expanded my consciousness the wide angle vision. I could take in stuff. I knew where guys were in the room, even though I couldn't see them behind me. So I think pushing like that expands you into these intuitive states. And that's what really awakened me to the intuitive abilities that I was able to go into. So yeah, putting the scenarios where we would do like prisoner takeouts or sentry takeouts, prisoner handling, stuff like that. But the prisoner takeout or the sentry takeout, the guy was like you're talking, walking, and they didn't know when the guys were going to come. Eventually, these guys started to know when the guys were coming to get them just before they hit. So we started teaching the guys, you have to go empty mind. Because if you focus what you're going to do, it projects. So guys would pick it up. I mean, we're starting to push into these like crazy zones where people were starting to go beyond the physical. So that's when you push people very, very hard in a physical realm, they start to expand. And I saw it over and over again. I could see when a guy was like in the zone. So we talked about the alpha brainwave states a lot. So we tell them, push into the zone, alpha brainwave state, wide angle vision, breathe, And these guys started to do amazing things. I mean, all these guys were attacking them. They could handle it. It was like, wow, he's in the zone. So we want to find these zones in our martial training. We want to push people into these zones.